When you think about Sweden, what's the first image that comes up? Do you think of like Stockholm people with a great sense of style and minimalist apartments? Or do you think of Midsommar out in the forest by a lake or something? Or maybe the like sustainable, safe political system? I feel like whenever I tell someone that I'm Swedish, these are the types of things that people point out, which are all like super positive. But of course, you know, maybe they're just being polite and there are negative associations with Sweden too. Either way, I do often get the question like, since Sweden seems kind of great, how come I emigrated? Well, let me tell you, these are the 7 reasons why I left Sweden. First of all, I've lived outside of Sweden for more than 11 years now. First 4 years in London, then 3 in Berlin, and now another 4.5 in London. And there is no part of me that wants to move back to Sweden. A summer house? Yes, please. But living there full time? No way. Don't get me wrong, Sweden is great. Sweden is beautiful, it's just not for me. The first reason for that is one thing that's both a pro and a con, the trend sensitivity. I don't know how that all started, but for some reason, Swedes are very much keeping up with the trends, like to a degree that I haven't met in probably any other country really. This is fun, and people watching and apartment watching in Stockholm is amazing, but the other side of this is that there's like this anxiousness about not being wrong or not being clueless. Like you need to stay on it and follow the right accounts and listen to the right type of music and just, well, like it gets kind of exhausting and very uptight and, can I say it, a little bit boring. One thing I love about London is that there isn't just one trend everyone's adhering to, but like a multitude of different trends and subcultures and tastes and personal preferences. And you know what else? Anything goes in London. It's so much more fun to me. We have this cultural concept in Sweden called jante lagen, which is very similar to tall poppy syndrome, if you know what that is. Basically, jante lagen, or the jante law, says that no one is better than anyone else, and you should never, whatever you do, think that you're something special in any way. Bragging is a national sin in Sweden. I actually didn't notice just the full extent of this culture before I left Sweden, and now whenever I listen to like a Swedish podcast or watch a Swedish TV show, I'm just like squirming a bit because this way of looking at other people is so prevalent. For example, everything has to be mellow. So if you give someone a compliment, you need to mellow it out by adding some negativity. Like instead of saying, "Oh, I read your book and I loved it," Swedes will say, you know, "I finally read your book after it being on my bookshelf for months, and I have to admit that actually I was really surprised by how much I liked it." Do you see what I mean? It's like, is that even a compliment anymore? So I want to give people monumental compliments, and I feel like if I'm good at something, I want to be able to say that without it feeling like I'm bragging. Maybe you heard of the sweet deal you have as an employee in Sweden. The minimum wage is high, you get like at least 5 weeks paid vacation, parental leave is great, and you're never ever expected to work overtime. No wonder then that almost every Swede is completely content being an employee for the remainder of their professional life. This means though that if you want to start your own business or becoming self-employed, you're really giving up on the sweet life. Since salaries are high, things cost quite a lot too, and from a social standpoint, we're not really pushed or encouraged in Sweden to take professional risks and start your own creative gambit or whatever. So honestly, if I stayed in Sweden, I don't think that I would have ever started my own business. I just don't see that happening, simply because I don't think the thought would have even entered my mind. And writing a book, I don't know, I don't think I would have gone for it. Feeling like content and comfortable and like financially stable is of course wonderful things that few people in this world get to experience, and is by far one of the best and most precious things about Sweden. And I am beyond grateful to have been brought up there with, you know, that sense of security and free healthcare and free education and all of that. I'm also saying that one of the reasons I left is because that I, in the back of my mind, had this nagging feeling of like simply knowing that 9 to 5, it's not for me, I can't hack it. I'm too much of a square peg to fit into like that round hole, if you know what I mean. I want to give a big thank you to BetterHelp for being a paid partner in this video. Personally, I've been working way too hard these past well, these last couple of years actually. You know, I talked about this before. It sort of comes with the territory of running your own business, that sense of like always having too many things going on at the same time. And my brain is definitely sometimes having trouble switching off from work after a long work day. And I know a lot of you have like demanding jobs or trying to keep on top of studying, so you can relate. It's easy to sometimes get caught up in the stress and lose focus on, you know, what's important in life. So regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just like a human who lives in this world who is going through a hard time sometimes, therapy can help give you the tools to approach your life in like a different way. And that's why I'm so excited to today be teaming up with BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy accessible, and this is such an important job because finding a therapist, it can be hard. And like BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a credentialed therapist in as little as a few days. So if you're feeling like maybe it would be good for you to talk to someone and you want to give BetterHelp a try, it's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist through the link in my description or by visiting betterhelp.com/mustard. This link also gives you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp so that you can connect with a therapist and see whether it's something that's helpful to you and your situation. And because finding a therapist that fits you is a very personal thing, if you don't feel compatible with your first therapist, which is a common thing with therapy, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost. So if you're considering online therapy with BetterHelp, click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/mustard. Thank you again to BetterHelp for supporting this channel, and now let's get back to the video. Oh, you already know about this one, the weather. And I'm not just talking about the howling north wind and the -20 degrees winters. I'm talking all year round. It's just like cold. Even in the summer, more often than not, it will be cold. A few warm days here and there, sometimes even like reaching 25 or 30 degrees, but the next day could just as easily be 12 degrees and rain. There's no Gilmore Girls autumn with like warm Octobers and to-go coffee. It's cold and grey already in September most years, and spring doesn't come in March, it comes in May. So my birthday is in May, by the way, and the day that I was born, my parents had to clear like this much snow off the car to like drive to the hospital. David and I are two of the few people in this world who can honestly say that we moved to London for the lovely weather. The cold is one thing. The darkness, that's another thing entirely. Pitch black when you leave in the morning, pitch black when you finish work at 5. At the darkest time of the year, you will have daylight between like 10 a.m. and 2:30. The rest is black. And I'm from Stockholm, which is actually in this like southern half of Sweden. If you go north, there will be no sun, no daylight at all for like a month. Imagine that. Now, of course, this means that it's the other way around in the summer. Nothing but blue skies even at 11 p.m. So no matter what time of night, you will see some blue on the horizon because dusk moves directly into dawn. So this is, of course, absolutely glorious. And Swedes go a little bit crazy from all the gorgeous lights and the sense that you don't even have to sleep, you have so much energy. Does it make up for the extreme lack of energy and the constant sleepiness and depressive thoughts in dark, dark winter? No, it does not. Now, I'm just going to admit it. I'm a shamefully easily bored person. I need to feed my brain with new stuff all the time. And this has given me this like voluntary nomadic personality where there is almost no better feeling than that first night in a new flat, especially if that new flat is in like a new city or even better in a new country. Poor David then, maybe this wasn't what he signed up for, and actually when I said that I wanted to leave Berlin, he did tell me that we better make a good decision here, because if it's up to him, this was the last time we moved to a new country. So we debated, Tokyo or back to London. It was a hard decision, and I'm kind of sure that we made the right one. And you know, look at me now, a mortgage and everything, I have firmly planted my roots. So the reason I feel like I have zero inclination to leave London is that London is, well, one of the very few world cities. I don't feel like I live in the UK per se. I feel more like I live in a world metropolitan, one of the centers of the earth. Like Tokyo would probably feel the same, and you know, Stockholm, lovely and gorgeous as it is, it's a city of like 1 million people in a country of like 10 million people, which of course means like not as much is going on in Stockholm as one of the big cities of the world. And for someone who is incredibly easily bored, London is for sure a better fit for me. There's another reason I left Sweden, which has absolutely nothing to do with Sweden itself. And that is that, I have a big appetite for life. I want epic adventures and I want to challenge myself to have like scary but magical experiences. And emigrating and becoming an immigrant in an adopted country is definitely one of those things I felt would do me a lot of good as a person and let me experience something that I never could have if I stayed put in like the safeness of my home country. There are bad things about moving to a new country, of course. Like David and I were privileged enough to like know the language and not having to deal with visas since this was like pre-Brexit. But David and I both coming from humble backgrounds and having very little budget, moving to one of the most expensive cities in the world, it was at times really, really quite bad and a constant struggle to make it work in the beginning. Still though, going through stressful financial times for quite a few years, in hindsight, I am so glad that I have experienced that. It has made me appreciate my life now to such an extent, like such an extreme extent, because I don't take financial stability for granted. Like being able to order takeout or take a taxi home after a night out, it still feels like such luxuries to me. And yes, I do feel like living here, it's such an adventure. Every goddamn time I walk down Bond Street or look at the ducks in Hyde Park, it's like unbelievable that I get to live here. What a life. And I feel this ridiculous gratitude to Sweden for bringing me up safely in a, relatively speaking, safe and feminist and just society. And also the same extreme gratitude to London for like taking us in and making us feel like, honestly, for the first time in my life, utterly at home. I love Sweden, but I belong here. What about you, darling? Are you happy in your hometown, or is it time to pack a little bag and set your sight on the horizon? And do you recognize your culture in what I described as Swedish culture today, or is your home country completely different? I hope that you don't have jante lagen or tall poppy syndrome in your country, because honestly, it's the worst. I can't wait to hear your take on all this. Do give me a like if you enjoyed this one. And obviously, you should subscribe if you haven't yet. I mean, why not? Thank you so much for watching today and see you next week, I hope. Puss puss!